Hello everyone, Mr. E here, and today we'll be taking a look at a map that is very difficult to a good portion of the player base, and I think that's not without good reason. It is a map that has a few very challenging zones, and my intent with this video is to show you how best to manage these zones and therefore increase your chances of succeeding. The map in question is, as you might have figured out so far, Clandestium Gloriana. And very shortly here we'll be arriving at the first notable zone on this map, which is the Death Ledge area. This is a very difficult stretch of the map, and it's pretty much why the mission has its reputation as being one of the more difficult. However, if you can make it past just a couple of these zones, the mission is pretty much a guaranteed win. So I want to show you about 3 to 4 zones and how you should be playing in them in order to best increase your chances of success. Obviously this comes down to personal skill, but I'm going to give you the best places to hold up for a horde, the best routes to take to loop a boss or a horde, and just general awareness. So first of all, we have this whole open ledge thing. The very first thing you'll need to do is manage this drop down here. This can be really risky because there can be lots of enemies standing in this little area that will see you pretty much immediately. You need to come out of this doorway, this drop down, with a bang, and you need to be really careful not to literally have a bang with this the barrels that are lying around, because that's the first big hurdle for this part of the map. Is there's tons and tons of active barrels that can explode and throw you off the edge fully with no chance of grabbing and recovery. So I think the really nice thing to have on this map is the bubble. The bubble is great on a lot of maps, but Clandestium Gloriana is a map where it truly shines because it makes every bit of real estate that you have that much more valuable. Since this open area has little cover, the bubble can block off a whole section of it and make it so that you can actually survive on one of these landings while you're making your way downhill. So watch out for barrels when you drop down and make a grand entrance here, and as soon as you can, get yourself secured in this little area here. Now, when you're coming around this part, this is the first place where a boss is often triggered, and with a couple of the bosses, you have a pretty good option as for how to get rid of them. If you get a Plague Ogre or a Chaos Spawn, those guys can fall off the edge even more easily than you can. So if you have a Chorus Zealot or a Shout Veteran, you can just simply make them fall off the edge, just get them positioned next to it and give them a shout back. Even certain grenades or barrel explosions can push them towards and off the edge. The real problems are when you get Beasts of Nurgle. Captains also fall into this category, as captains can't really be staggered off of edges, but Beasts of Nurgle are really the big issue here because they leave such long-lasting slime, and they will just completely pollute the small amount of area that you have to play in. So if you do get a Beast of Nurgle, I recommend that you follow this upward trajectory here, that you make your way down and up and around this ramp. You can make your way into the center room and buy a little bit more time, and then fall out down the back, and then just continue to loop around. But be really careful with this little section right here. Thankfully, there's these little screens that will protect you against like really getting flung off, but this is going to be exposed to more gunners. There's a second loop you can run, which is through this back door here, but remember that this back door has a drop down that you can't go up in reverse. So if you do end up running this loop, you can run it this way and proceed back all the way up to here and run the loop again and just continue cutting that Beast of Nurgle around while your team works on whatever else they need to work on. The other thing that you can do, which is a little bit of a glitch of bug abuse, is obviously the doors. The doors instantly kill bosses if you shut them on them and it collides with them in a certain way. The Beast of Nurgle can be killed as long as its big glowing yellow weak spot is in that door, and there's 2 doors up here at the top, so you can just execute them instantly. It's a great way to get rid of them, or a captain, because captains are very slow and easy to position in the doors. Alright, so now once you've dealt with what potentially might be a boss, we need to make our way down to the second landing, and this is probably the the hardest part of the mission for me, is traversing this little bit right here from these two positions. For whatever reason, it seems like there is a lot of bursters and disablers and chargers that will be spawning in this area while you're making your way around this portion of the map. I think the best thing to do is just hard commit and make it to this doorway down here. This is the doorway with this little back hallway. This back hallway is really good. However, you'll want to have someone who's positioned at both ends if you're holding out against a horde or something in order to spot any trappers or bursters or whatever might be coming in. The same thing applies when you're trapped in this hallway here, because there is no exit on this side. If you do get trapped with like a chaos spawn or something back here and you've got a horde that's pressing in from this side, assign one person to stand here and look this way, and they can be fighting the horde and then ignoring the boss. The boss should be being dealt with over there. And they can be fighting the horde and dealing with any disablers, trappers, bursters, flamers that might be coming in. A single flamer or grenadier who gets to this position here and can get a line of sight on your team who's fighting the boss over there can instantly cause a wipe. So assign someone to like watch those corners to get an advantage and get a peek. Now we come to a second spot where the boss can spawn. And this is another tricky spot because a lot of times players will enter into these small rooms and they'll get cut off. They'll take different paths from each other. This is the respawn point down here, by the way. It's usually a pretty secure respawn point. If you do have to rescue your team on it, you can come into this room and then bait the enemies to follow you up this way. And once you get in here, you can simply vault out this window and come back down here and get the rescue. Hopefully you'll be far enough ahead of the enemies to get them by that point. You also have access to these doors here, great for executing bosses if you do get a boss. And generally, the goal would be is if you get a edgeable boss, a boss you can knock at the ledge, bring them all the way back out here where you've already dealt with all the enemies and get them knocked off the edge. If you fight them in here, you choose to run the risk of one, you have very close quarters, which is more likely to end up with splash damage, and two, there'll be all sorts of specials and reinforcing enemies streaming from where the game hasn't quite loaded yet into this area to get you. So staying out here on the edge, you have pretty clear visibility way back towards the start of the map for behind the spawns for specialists and disablers while you're fighting a boss or a horde, and you'll also be able to see them coming through either this way or through the door. Alright, let's go on to the second area of the map and the other really big challenging part, which is the first main event. Now, welcome to the first main event on Clandestium Gloriana. Resetting the transistors to open this door up here. This can be a very challenging event for players because they don't know where to position, and they oftentimes get spread out trying to accomplish the objective. Usually what will happen with unorganized groups in this area is half of the group is aware that the objective is going on and they're trying to complete it, and the other half is just treating it like it's a regular old horde survival and haven't even realized that one of these things has been triggered and needs to be reset. I think that's due in large part to the visibility or lack thereof on the icons that appear on these transistors as they trigger. But generally the strategy that I find works the best is to treat this area over here as your safe go-to zone. The reason this area is so safe is because there's only two main avenues of approach. They can approach from this area here. Usually your specials and all those variety of things will spawn from this door or this side, or even from over there, and they'll come at you from around this tight corner. Your hordes and everything else will either funnel across the top and down these stairs here, or they'll come around this way and they'll try to thread themselves through this area behind this box. So you have got a kind of a nice piece of cover here and lots of room to work with. The only other way the enemies can come at you is through this back hallway, which is perfectly fine because, again, it's a very predictable avenue. This area is also completely obscured. I mean, you can see that just standing here, I'm almost completely obscured from any angles at which a gunner or something can attack me. They could only take position out here, which generally they can only be about as far as this line here before they can't get a shot anymore. The danger with playing farther out into this area, especially on this side, is that over here we have a drop down that we just came down, and this is a spawn, a hot spot for spawning specials and things. So if you choose to hold up on this side, you're constantly having to look down this tunnel and focus in on specials and all sorts of things that are going to be spawning from this direction. They also spawn right over here, but you notice that there isn't nearly as much room to cover from that that door. It's very, very visible from the area you'd be holding right here, which can play both ways, right? It could play positively for you, but it's probably going to be negatively because the second a Tox Bomber spawns over there, they can lob into your position. The one thing you'll really, really want to avoid doing is hanging out up top and being really, really sure of your position on this map. It's very easy to get picked off by gunners that appear at that door over there, or just a sniper or something that has low ground. And so we try to stay away from the top of the map if at all possible, especially on Havoc difficulty where gunners can be extremely dangerous. If you hang out in this area and use your bubble, you should be fairly safe. As far as dealing with the objective itself, I like to devote a couple of players to this. Usually there's one player who has some sort of skill or ability that can, like a veteran shout or a chorus, that can make their way out and reset the transistor. If it's anywhere on this side, you're golden, because you already got the line of sight and protection from your allies who are hanging out back there. And then your second player, who's hanging out here, kind of near the stairs, can make a quick jaunt up, slide in, and get the reset. The way that this event works is it's kind of random as far as what I can determine. It'll either ask you to reset a transistor, or if you just reset a transistor, it'll ask you to restart the power. And you can hear the different audio cues for the operative swagger asking you to do the different things, or whoever your handler is for the mission. But oftentimes players miss those. So just be aware of whether or not you need to reset a transistor, or whether you need to activate the power again. After you've done a number of these resets, depending on the difficulty, you activate this button here, but don't rush down to the gate just yet. Minor mention, if the event does spawn on this side over here, just make sure you bring your whole team with you. Don't leave some of the team over here isolated. Bring everyone together. That's the number one cause of failure in this part of the mission, is players getting really, really separated and not sticking together, because the special spawns can come from many different angles, like over here, and all the way over in that corner, and so you can get picked and cause a big catastrophic failure that happens really, really early on. And the last thing to mention about this area is that this is the respawn point where I've positioned myself here, so playing on this side means you are pretty much guaranteed to succeed this area as long as you do not lose this position. If you can hold this position, you can almost always get a revive and get the team, just keep cycling them up, even if you have to get through it with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Okay, last thing I'll mention about this part is once you activate this button, do not rush over here and trap yourself waiting to go down these stairs, because there's a very long delay between the time that you flick this switch and the time that this door here opens. And during that time, any enemies that are beyond this fence can shoot on you freely, which can be very, very dangerous in some difficulties, and any enemies that are remaining up here will funnel towards you. That could seem like a good thing, but remember, again, a single trapper, flamer, any number of suppressive enemies, gas bomber or flame bomber, can make this small area that you have when you're trapped in here a real nightmare, especially if you've got a horde barreling it out on you. So we want to wait until this door has been opened to funnel ourselves into this nice tight choke point and start dealing with the enemies down in this lower level of the map. Now we're getting to another really dangerous part, and we're almost through the dangerous parts of this map. This is my preferred area to hold up. Usually there's a horde spawn about here. I prefer to hold up here so you have good line of sight in the door. One person can cover on this side and shoot into the door frame. Usually your vanguard, whoever your melee classes are inside of this door frame and are meleeing from both sides, or they can do it out here, wherever's better. Don't poke your head too far out in the hallway if you detect that there are specials nearby, because a lot of times they can blindside you. Also, poking your head out into this hallway has a chance to spawn a boss. There's a boss trigger that's somewhere around here, and this is a great time to get a boss that just completely overwhelms you, especially if what happens to me happens to you, which is you get sandwiched by a horde from the backside here, and you've got a boss in front. You don't want to have that sort of situation arising. If you do get a big boss chasing you and you need to take him for a loop, you can come this way and go back up the stairs and rinse and repeat. Or if you're feeling ballsy, you can drop down and beat the boss to the tram here and get on to the next portion of the mission. Alright, and here we are at the last actually difficult portion of the map, and this is the last place that I see players wiping pretty frequently. It's just after you exit the tram ride. Now this tram ride is is a trap, right? It brings you into this zone and pretty much guaranteed you will spawn a horde as you approach these stairs here. And whatever was trailing you in the last part, if you ditched it, it will respawn at the doors on this side and come and attack you. So don't think that you've outsmarted any bosses or whatever you left behind. The best way to deal with this area here is to do not let the enemies get set up outside and get a free line of sight on wherever you are here. That's why I recommend using this set of boxes here. This set of boxes gives you perfect vantage points on the two directions that any specials are going to come from. The specials, specifically Tox Bombers and Flame Bombers, are going to be your biggest problem. Trappers too, because they can pull you out and make you exposed. Do not be tempted, especially if you are in over your head on a very high difficulty, to run out here and start dealing with stuff. Let your ranged characters do their job and deal with the threats. This box is perfect because if you cover on this side of the box and look this way, you can see that door over there, which happens to be a spawn that specials will come down. You can see that entire left side and middle of the field. You also have cover from this rod here from anything that positions itself in the middle, which is pretty nice. On the left side of this box here, you can peek and see this right side spawn door over here, which is usually the source of the main set of horde enemies that comes towards you. Dogs and trappers and stuff will also come from this direction. So if you've got a plasma gun or something that can do insane pierce, just be firing it. You see that? Gas bomber coming right now. Just be focusing on this direction and get picks on them before they set up and do this to you, because you have this nice advantageous position where there's no spawn points back here, but that can evaporate in an instant if you aren't securing this door and making certain the specials don't get a chance to play their silly games. Once you have wiped out the oncoming hordes and anything that would threaten to actually overwhelm you, only then should you proceed out here to deal with the rest of the map, because this is also a place where there can be a boss spawn. Usually on Havoc it's a captain, but on other difficulties it can be a chaos spawn or anything else. Alright, and let's take a look at the last portion of the map, which is pretty easy comparatively to the start. The start of this mission is where all the difficulty is, and that's in part why I wanted to create this video, is to show you how to handle those first few zones and get you to this portion where it's just pretty much coasting to victory. So you've got this nice little ledge here. You can make the enemies climb up to you if there's anything fearsome down here. Be careful, because this area and this ramp up here are lovely spots where bosses choose to spawn. So if you do get a boss that can be knocked up the ledge, this ledge is ready and waiting for that to happen. Once you proceed up here, you have this wide open snowy area. This can oftentimes be a situation where you have a lot of fighting, because there tends to be a lot of reinforcements from the direction of up the stairs here, and enemies are dropping down from these balconies and dropping on top of players' heads. So if you are in danger here, you can either back up and onto level playing ground and funnel them next to these boxes, or you can push forward to this location where you just have to clear this area here and watch your behind. As you proceed up here, should be too difficult, but we go into the last real challenge of the mission, which is clearing the ice from these gears here. And the real temptation with this room is to spend too much time focusing on these two holes in the wall. This one here and that one way over there. These are the two ways that enemies spawn into this room. Oftentimes when you, well actually always when you spawn into this room, there'll be lots of stationary enemies that are waiting around, but the safest way to deal with them is just to kill them and then move over to the right here. The right happens to have the spawn point as well, so if you lost any players in the previous part, you'll need to make a beeline for them here. Just keep something between yourself and these holes in the wall at all times, because snipers and gunners and stuff will spawn out of them, as well as your horde enemies. You get this ice broken quickly. Trying to hang out on this side of the room, I think, generally provides the best strategy. Remember that enemies corner very poorly, so if you stick close to this gear thing and just keep making your way around, the enemies oftentimes can't track you. And once you've got all the ice cleared up, you'll head into the airlock over here and up to the final part of the mission, which I won't even waste any breath talking about because it is that easy. Simply do the random tasks that it assigns to you and move on with your life. But that is the whole of Clandestium Gloriana, basically. I think it's a really easy map once you understand those first few zones. I'd love to have there be known strategies out there that players of all skill can employ, because I see far too often players losing their games because there just is no coherent strategy at all for some of these more difficult zones. And this map is one that asks you to have at least a small facsimile of strategy in that first half of the map. And so here it is for you. If there's anything else that you think I missed, let me know down in the comments. If you have any advice or suggestions for future videos on sort of this topic, any different ways that I can present this information, or if you liked it, whatever it is, let me know down in the comments as well. Like and subscribe, that would be hugely appreciated, especially in these dark times without Dark Tide. And I'll see you next time. Mystery out. Bye.